Welcome to the first Friday Transportation Seminar at Portland State University. We are very pleased to have one of our own to begin the seminar series for the fall 2015 term. So today we have Dr. Avinash Unnikrishnan. Correct me if I pronounced it wrong. Dr. Unnikrishnan is a new associate professor, just joined our Department of Civil Engineering at Portland State from West Virginia University. And for today, we'll talk about a topic on evaluation of shared space in campus environment. With that, I will just give the room to Dr. Unnikrishnan.
Thank you, Lingming. As you introduced, my name is Avi, and I'm a new faculty in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department here at Portland State University. The topic of my presentation is evaluation of shared space in a campus environment. This is the work I did with my student Colin Frosch and my colleague David Martinelli at West Virginia University over the last 2 years. So let me just give a little bit of background regarding the problem and put the problem in context. West Virginia University, the main campus is in Morgantown, West Virginia. This is the campus map of WVU in Morgantown. WVU has an enrollment of nearly 30,000 students. It has two campuses in Morgantown. This is the Evansdale campus, and this is the downtown campus. The Evansdale campus hosts the law school, the medical school, the engineering, and agricultural science, whereas the downtown campus has the businesses, the arts, the sciences, and the main university offices. Okay. Students often have to commute between the two campuses. When I was teaching a class, and every time I used to go a little bit, 2 to 3 minutes extra, I always used to get like visual or verbal cues from the students, closing the book loudly, just signaling that they need to go to the other campuses, to other campus for their calc class and stuff like that. So students have to commute often between the two campus. Morgantown downtown is somewhere over here. That has a lot of businesses, and there is often a lot of commuting traffic, business traffic. Because of that, there are two main modes of transportation. The main mode of transportation for the students, at least, between the two campuses is what is known as the Personal Rapid Transit System, or the PRT. My presentation has nothing to do with the PRT, but it is a pretty cool form of transport, and if you have not heard of it, just Google for it. It's something which is very, very unique to Morgantown, West Virginia. In addition to that, there are two main arterials running across town. This is called the Beechhurst Avenue, and this is called University Avenue. And both of these streets or these arterials are reasonably congested, not just due to student traffic, but also traffic to the businesses, the supplies, and the commutes. Okay. Now, the focus of the problem lies in the heart of the downtown campus. You can see on the left-hand side. You can see, I don't know if it's clear to you, this is called the Mountain Lair, which is the student union. So because it's a student union, the road in front of the Mountain Lair, which is the University Avenue, experiences a lot of pedestrian traffic. So you have tons of pedestrian traffic along a main arterial in the town, and that creates a lot of congestion problems. Now, the problem area is called the Grumbines Island. Grumbines Island was implemented in 1930s by a professor known as Professor Grumbine. He was a faculty in the facilities engineering department. They did not have a civil engineering department in WVU in the 1930s. And he constructed this refuge for pedestrians across University Avenue. I don't know if it's clear. These are all red bricks, and there's red bricks here, red bricks here. Okay. So essentially, it creates some sort of refuge to protect the pedestrians from the regular through traffic. Grumbines Island works very well when there is less number of pedestrians and less number of traffic. For example, in the summertime, it works beautifully well. It's a perfect example of context-sensitive design. It fits in very well within the within the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Okay. Now, but what happens during regular sessions is, especially during class timings, what happens is there is this wall of pedestrians. These pedestrians are crossing all the time. It creates almost like a wall which prevents the traffic from crossing the University Avenue, and this causes the traffic to continuously back up. Okay. This is particularly severe during morning peak as well as afternoon peak, okay, and during class change times. And in West Virginia, we have 15-minute classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 1 hour 15-minute classes on Tuesday and Thursday. So the time in which the problems occur shifts depending upon what day of the week it is. Okay. So in around the spring of 2013, the West Virginia University Student Government Association, they approached us and they wanted to look at measures to decongest this particular problem. Again, the problem area is somewhere over here. Okay. They were particularly interested in shutting down University Avenue, that is from this spot to this spot in front of the university, in front of the mountain lab. They wanted to close down University Avenue for through traffic, make it pedestrian only, okay, and reroute traffic this way. Now, rerouting can be done at 2 different levels. First is you look at it as a system point of view and look at it at a macro point of view and try to move as much traffic onto Beechhurst. Okay. The problem with that is Beechhurst is already congested. It's not like it's a nice road, a wide road. I mean, it is a nice wide road, but it's already congested due to the other traffic. The second problem is also that some of these side streets, they do not have sufficient capacity to accommodate a continuous flow of traffic, and Morgantown is very, very hilly. Okay, if you've never been to that part of the region, that's why it's called the West Virginia Mountaineers. Okay, it's very hilly, and there are some side distance issues in some of these side roads. Okay, so that's the main what's one problem. The second type of rerouting they want was just to shut down this small section and reroute it at the back of the mountain layer. Now, the problem with that was some of these side streets, at this point, they do not have sufficient capacity to handle 2 lanes of traffic, mainly because there is street parking. If you remove street parking, yes, there will be capacity to handle 2-directional flow, but there is also a lot of pedestrian traffic over here at the back of the mountain layer over here. So essentially, if you shut down University Avenue and route traffic towards the back of the mountain layer, you're just shifting the problem from the front of the mountain layer to the back of the mountain layer. Okay? So it's not exactly solving the problem. And if you remove street parking, already parking is a major issue in Morgantown downtown. All the downtown businesses over here will not be happy. Okay? So we have that problem too. Around 2011, Alpha Associates, which is a Morgantown-based consulting company, they did a feasibility study. And the 2 ideas they proposed was a tunnel. Basically, the road, University Avenue comes here, comes here, comes here, and then there is a tunnel underneath the campus and gets out here. Okay. And they wanted to build a bridge, okay, a pedestrian bridge. These are the 2 options where the pedestrian bridge for the students to cross University Avenue. So these are the 2 options. The problem was that almost all the utilities for the downtown campus falls under these 2 roads. Okay. So constructing that, especially during when university is in session and managing the utility transfers, everything was going to be a big headache. And the cost was in excess of 12 million or 15 million in 2011, and I'm sure it would have risen. And people were very confident that it's going to be difficult to maintain the construction schedule. Yes?
You don't need to worry about that. Only for short, brief clarification questions.
So the pedestrian bridge was $12 to $15 million?
Which one? No, the pedestrian bridge always. No, pedestrian bridge. The tunnel was $12 to $15 million. Let me get to the pedestrian bridge next. Okay, so a tunnel which gets down here and comes out of here. Okay, now regarding the pedestrian bridge, this is a close-up shot, a cross-section. This is the mountain layer, the student union. As you can see, the road here is reasonably narrow. Okay, and to get the pedestrian bridge to the sufficient elevation, the only option they had was they had to dig a little bit. They had to reduce the height of the road a little bit, which will affect part of the utilities. So the cost of the pedestrian bridge shoots up. It's definitely not greater than 10 million, but it is a high-priced pedestrian bridge. The second major problem was that culturally on the campus, students are just used to walking on the road. They are not very confident, even if you build a pedestrian bridge, whether students will just use the pedestrian bridge or they may just continue using the road, and that's something they wanted to avoid. And the third thing is, and this is the main reason which I was sort of against the tunnel and the bridge, and a lot of people from WVU were definitely had this reason, is this is actually a very beautiful part of the campus. Okay, if you walk around here, a lot of trees, nice brick buildings, all of which are 100, 150 years old. And if you go there right now when the school is in session, you have students walking all over. There is this zone, I think it's called the protest zone, where any politically active fraternities, if they want to make protests, they stand there and shout slogans and placards and all that stuff. It's really a pretty nice part of town. And building a tunnel and a bridge will basically destroy. It's not only expensive, it will destroy that campus feel. In my opinion, this is the center of gravity of Morgantown. This is, and you take this off, you build a bridge here or you build a tunnel here, it's gone. Okay. Now, so around this time in the summer, my colleague David Martinelli, he spent some time in Europe, and and when he was in Europe, he experienced these intersections with no traffic control, and he was really excited by it. And he actually experienced a couple of these in London and Italy, and then he was like, "Wow, this works," And he came over, and we started discussing, and we were like, "Okay, why don't we try that over here in Morgantown?" So traditionally in transportation design, one of the principal paradigms is separation. How do we enforce safety and efficiency? We separate. We separate out pedestrians. We separate out traffic flow, either through lane restrictions, bridges, tunnels, signals. Okay? Separation is a principal element of transportation design. Now, Hans Monderman in the Netherlands, he pioneered this concept known as the shared space, which reversed this paradigm. Okay? His idea was that pedestrians and vehicles should have equal access. Everybody should have equal access to the road. Okay? The idea was that you drive more carefully, you actually make eye contact with the people in front of you. Okay? Drive cautiously, look, and slowly move forward. And that was his vision. And his idea was there shouldn't be any signals, any sidewalks, or any crosswalk, and trust the drivers and the pedestrians to make their way forward, okay, by cooperation. And it works. So these are examples of shared spaces. Okay, this is an example in the United States, and the other three are in Europe. If you look at the shared space, you see a couple of features sticking out. First thing is it's an open concept. Okay, there's no curb, okay, no delineations, a lot of lighting, open sight lines. Okay, it's a single flat plane. The shared space often have textured pavements. This is to tell the drivers that you are in a shared space. You'll feel when you're driving through a shared space and automatically slow down. Okay, so that's another common feature. And there are some aesthetic elements like the bollards and trees which define the perimeter of the shared space. There is hardly any signs inside a shared space. Okay, you don't look for signs and follow the instructions. Once you get into, you look at other people, and cooperate and move forward. Okay, so essentially there are a lot of visual cues once you're inside a shared space, not signs. And that's what directs the movement. Again, generally in most cases in transportation design, when you design a roadway, I'm not saying in all cases, but in most cases you establish a hierarchy. There is always one class of vehicle which is sort of more important than the other. What shared space is doing is removing that hierarchy and saying everybody is equal, everybody cooperate, and find your way forward. Okay. Now, shared space improves pedestrian safety. Lot of reasons. Shared space often have a lot of lighting, drivers are more cautious, and pedestrians are more attentive, and people used to driving in shared space are often making eye contact. That's very important. That's something we are missing when you're in a traffic signal. Okay, so because of that, shared space has been found to improve pedestrian safety, especially in England and in the Netherlands. For example, in Netherlands, there was an intersection in front of a primary school, which was sort of hazardous for the students, and there were a couple of near misses, and they converted that to the shared space, and pedestrian safety and comfort improved. Shared space often helps in community revitalization. Whenever you propose a shared space, the businesses in the region are often gung-ho and for it, mainly because it improves the foot traffic in the region, and because people are a lot more comfortable, the businesses slowly start thriving. This is in Poynton, England, where this was a traditional traffic signal before, and they converted that to a shared space, and once it became a shared space, apparently some of the local businesses in the region started experiencing they had higher profits and a lot more businesses. And apparently it became brighter also. I don't know how. Shared space actually improves efficiency of traffic flow. And this is actually one of the reasons why we propose shared space in Morgantown, West Virginia. Remember, I was talking about this wall of pedestrians. Okay, if you can take that wall of pedestrians and if you can spread them out, okay, what happens is gaps start appearing, and then cars can slowly move forward. That was actually the original logic behind proposing a shared space over there in West Virginia. So shared space results in continuous traffic flow, fewer shock waves, primarily due to pedestrians yielding out, and in several cases they found that traffic actually moves in a smoother manner. Okay. And for the case of West Virginia, it's a fraction of the cost, to build a bridge or a tunnel and reduce construction time. Okay. So we started with a traffic study. We had around 28 student volunteers. We focused just on this region. Okay. And we collected pedestrians and vehicle data. Manual counting was used to collect the turn volume and pedestrian data. We also got the data from the Alpha Associates study, which is primarily focused on pedestrians, and used that to validate ours. And we also used 2 radar detectors to actually count the traffic on the main road. Now, and the traffic was what we expected it to be. As you can see, it hits this red line. It hits at around 7 a.m. and then it constantly increases in the evening. We saw the sudden spike at like 1 o'clock. It's only because there is a major construction going on upstream, and that was the time when they were actually delivering steel to that region, and that's the reason why there is this sudden spike of traffic between like 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Okay, and it just coincided with the construction time. So we simulated the 3 options in WISM. The first option was rerouting this way and rerouting here. Okay. The second option was shared space, and the third option was separation, where the vehicles do not have, vehicles just directly travel. And just from the point of view of the vehicles, okay, rerouting significantly increased the average travel time, by almost doubled it. Okay. And remember, this is the best case scenario, and this was consistent across all the scenarios we tested: AM peak, PM peak, and in the middle of the day. Okay, when there is a lot of traffic for students who are walking here for lunch. And we did not account for the pedestrian traffic here. Okay, so this is actually the best case scenario. With the pedestrian traffic over here, it's only going to make it worse. Okay. Separation obviously gave the best results. Okay, almost an 80% reduction. Whereas shared space did not do that bad. It was like 40%, and and for the cost of it, we felt it was a good alternative. We want to point out that the WISM model we developed is not for shared space, is not 100% accurate. We are still in the process of calibrating it and making it even more better, because WISM does not do shared space. And one of the things we plan to do over the next year is develop a more sophisticated model which can accurately model shared space. So then we came up with a couple of Google sketches. Our first alternative was a large shared space, and a second alternative was a much more smaller shared space. At this time, we started having meetings. We first met with the WVU president and the vice president of administrative and finance, and they were both excited by the idea. They looked at our presentation, and they liked it much better than the tunnel and the bridge alternative. And then slowly they arranged meetings with all the university personnel. We met with the campus facilities engineer. We met with the chief of security, gave a bunch of other presentations, and slowly got all the main decision makers in the university on sort of on our side. Okay, and we are still in the process of trying to convince the MPO and the DOH, the Department of Highways. I guess the MPO's reaction to this is intrigued. We don't know whether they are for this or against this. DOH, as of now, no comments. Okay, so we issued an RFP and first for $25,000, and Stantec came up with an architectural site plan. You can definitely see the difference in quality between 3 civil engineers and an architectural firm creating a site plan, but ours was done for free. They got $25,000. Okay, so you have that. Yeah. And one of the problems, again, at this point we faced was a lot of the firms in the United States are not used to designing a shared space, and even coming up with a site plan for them, it was something they're just not used to. So the first design we got back was beautiful. It had a roundabout, it had statues, and it had trees, but it was not a shared space. So we had a couple of iterations, and this is sort of the almost final iteration. These are just textural inundations. There is not going to be a roundabout inside the shared space. Okay, no traffic circles, nothing, no benches. We are removing all of these too. And one of the things we are debating is they want this bulge here. One of the problems we think with this bulge is, remember earlier there was this wall of pedestrians. We believe by creating this bulge, we are psychologically directing all the pedestrians towards this point again, and you'll end up spending a lot of money and creating that wall again. So we want to push this bulge back, and they are doing it from a traffic calming perspective just to reduce the speed of the vehicles. But if you look at shared space, if you look at the European designs, you calm the vehicles first and then let them in. You don't calm them, let them in, calm them again. You don't do that. So we are suggesting just going overboard with the traffic calming over here, and not doing any traffic calming inside. If a shared space has to work, people and other vehicles should be the traffic calming device. You don't want bumps and stuff like that inside the shared space. Oh yeah, the cost of this was estimated to be around $5 million. Okay, and that is because we are going for like a fully loaded shared space with nice textural elements and stuff like that. We are looking at reducing it because $5 million is right at WVU's budget, right at the WVU's budget, and any cost overruns would increase it way more than maximum budget. We are looking at reducing some of the, trying to see if we can find cheaper ways to get the texture and remove some of the trees, because that area already has a lot of trees, so don't see any reason in planting more trees there. And so looking at ways to actually reduce it a little bit. So some of the challenges we are working on, the main thing is legal. Okay, the legal challenges. My student is working with the WVU legal team and seeing how it fits within the West Virginia rules of the road. The game changes depending upon who has the ownership of the road. If the DOH has the ownership of the road, I think the chances of this going through are lesser, because they prefer everything to fit neatly into the MUTCD guidelines and stuff like that, and there is no provision for anything like a shared space in the West Virginia rules of the road. If the ownership of the road is transferred to the university, it's far more likely because the university right now is on board with respect to converting this to a shared space. And we are also looking at, is it possible, because I know in the last 10-15 years there have been revisions to the WVU West Virginia rules of the road. Is there any possible, through contacts in the legislature, to introduce some changes for shared space? Okay. Making sure the design is ADA compliant, especially when you have textures on the road, and if you have physically handicapped people, we want to make sure that they can maneuver around, and their maneuverability is not lost. There is also a bus stop inside, around in that region, and there is a freight delivery zone. And the WVU facilities folks said that they would like to have the bus stop at one location, one pre-specified fixed location, as well as the freight delivery location to be at one. They don't want students running around depending upon where the bus parks. And of course freight delivery, because they have some heavy equipment for delivery, and that shouldn't be a problem. It's once you design it, we can easily identify a spot. We're also working with the Reed College of Media and trying to, create like this PR campaign and educational campaign on, informing the students, getting their feedback, having Q&A sessions. We do have a little bit of experience in it 3 years ago when the first, not 3, actually, 5 years ago. When the first roundabout in West Virginia was constructed, we did work with them and the DOT and create like a public educational campaign on how to use roundabouts, and we do have a little bit of experience in this, but this is the university students. The Reed College of Media is the School of Journalism at WVU. They have some expertise in using social media and promoting awareness among students, and we are tapping into their expertise. And one of the big things we are looking at is looking at spots in the United States which sort of functions as a shared space. There are spots in almost any university, most university towns. They don't call it shared space, but it kind of resembles a shared space. But now I can see the shared space movement a little bit picking up in the United States. This is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, on the Harvard campus, which is, they call it a shared space. It's not clear here, but it says shared space or shared street. Okay, so this started recently. And this is a huge thing for us. This is in Pittsburgh downtown. This is, again, it's not clear. It's University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. So right in the heart of Pittsburgh downtown, they're creating 3 shared spaces, and this is huge for us from a public marketing perspective. This is not something which works only in Europe. This is even over here in the United States, people have started looking at it. Just from the perspective of getting some acceptance, from, and again, already this thing has started. We are slowly, looking into it. I think the initial feedback we have received from a select group of students has been positive, but we definitely have not started a full-fledged marketing campaign. Okay, and if it goes through, if all the challenges are addressed by fall, we think the tender for constructing a shared space will go out hopefully in spring, and everything can happen next summer, but we are not that optimistic, especially mainly due to the legal challenges. Taking care of that is going to be the most critical bottleneck here. Yeah. And another, also, there are some restrictions because it's WVU, it's public state money. Like, we cannot just randomly pick a design firm in Netherlands which has experience in shared space and give them a project. There are some restrictions in terms of which companies the contracts can be handed out to, not because of any transportation thing, but there are some restrictions in terms of how you can use the state money. Okay, you can only give it to companies, just to simplify it, which have a presence in the region. Okay, so from me and my students' perspective, we are looking at improving the simulation model. Okay, a more sophisticated simulation model for shared space. We're working on collecting more pedestrian data all around the mountain layer, okay, on all sides. Well, I've said here collecting and analyze crash data. At that location, we have not had any fatal crashes or anything, but we are looking at talking to the police and the campus police and see if there been any uncomfortable pedestrian situations and try to tabulate that, and started, surveying some of the students, at least in the engineering college. What do you feel about it? What's your opinion? If 98% of the students say it's a ridiculous idea, yeah, then the project ends there. But if you find that there is a reasonable, positive feedback, then that's also another critical aspect we are looking at. Okay. To summarize, I strongly believe, and my colleagues strongly believe, that shared space can increase pedestrian safety. And it's not just something which works in small towns and in smaller intersections. In bigger cities like Cambridge, Boston, Massachusetts, and Pittsburgh are looking at shared space to revitalize their downtown. Okay, and some of the streets, at least in Pittsburgh, they are looking at is really in the heart of the Pittsburgh downtown, and they have been proven to decrease vehicular congestion, not in all cases, but depending upon the context. Okay, and definitely in terms of revitalizing the community, improving business, and at least in our context, we feel that shared space will help in addressing the pedestrian issues, and help in addressing the congestion issues, and mainly retain the campus feel of that of that area, which I think the tunnel or a bridge will find it difficult. Okay, so any questions? Yeah.
So you said that you plan on. For those of you registered for class, announce your name so I can record your question. Otherwise, double check with me before you leave.
So you said that you've spoken that you plan on doing a survey of students. Have you asked or done a survey to what the rest of the city and the business owners think? And if not, what's your feel on how they will react to this proposal?
The business owners, I think, should be for it, because all the other options are going to reduce it in some form or the other will reduce parking there. That's something they are worried about. I don't see any objections from the business owners. In general, as a city, no, we are focusing on the students first. As I said, the one thing which we have done here, and the College of Media, which has much more experience in dealing with these kind of issues, we kind of agreed to the strategy and showed us the strategy is like slowly, increase the number of people who are, first we started with the president, the vice president, then the campus, slowly build up the momentum rather than doing one publicity blitz. So the city, as of now, no, we'll first target the students, and then we can target the city. The MPO definitely knows about it, the Morgantown Planning Organization, and as I said, the best word to describe their response is intrigued. They want to see more analysis before they put their chips one way or the other. Yeah.
Gabriel Russo, Merck. Regarding I think it's a great idea and a wonderful alternative to the previous plans for how to deal with this problem. In Europe, it's very effective because roads are inherently a different sociological phenomena there. How do you mentioned the case in Pittsburgh. Is that a successful case, would you say? Did accidents go up after it became a pedestrian and auto-centric area, or did it stay safe? Do you know?
We had to wait for a couple of years to answer that question.
Okay.
They just implemented it, and the publicity blitz is coming out right now, But it seems like they got a lot of people for it in Pittsburgh, at least. Everybody is for it. The business owners definitely love it, and because of that, it's received a lot of positive publicity. So, yeah. Any one of you. Yeah.
Gerald, good quality. I definitely see the potential for the shared space concept to work here. One university that I visited that took a different approach, it seemed to work there, but might not work here. They basically put up gates and didn't allow vehicles to travel through the campus for about a 15-minute period in between classes. And this was to make it very bicycle friendly. So basically, after class lets out, the streets are flooded with bicycles, no cars whatsoever. And then when everybody's done with bicycles, the cars come out, and then it works pretty well in between classes. I was wondering if there might be some sort of like scheduling or possibly prevent the cars from coming through at certain times.
Okay, a couple of things. Bicycle traffic is not an issue there. Okay, hardly anybody bikes. So I mean, it's a hilly town. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to bike. Yeah, I know. I used to bike in Austin, but never biked in West Virginia. But the thing about gates is that the pedestrians which are crossing, they almost act as a organic gate. You know what I mean? And that's what we I think the campus you're referring to is something in North Carolina. This was brought up to us where you're saying during the class timing period, or at least during the time, you just shut down the traffic, right, and close it. Essentially, that's what is happening because there are literally like 1,000 or 2,000 students just crossing in.
Do you think maybe like it could change drivers' expectations when they get out of class? Instead of jumping right in their cars and getting stuck in traffic, maybe they hang out for 15 minutes outside of their cars because they know that gate's going to be there. It's similar the way it is, but
so the problem comes because the students who are coming from, let's see if I can. This is the downtown campus. For the students who are coming from the Evansdale campus and driving, that's not an option. They cannot wait 10 minutes because they'll miss the next class. For those who have the option, yeah, they can do. The second thing is most of the people who are stuck here are the through traffic. There is the big parking lot for the downtown campus, at least for students, is over here. Okay, and often if you come out of here, you don't need to go through University Avenue. Those students can find some alternative ways to actually to miss this congestion spot. But most of this backup is caused by the through traffic. In addition to the students, there is a lot of through traffic due to the businesses, due to the commute here, and people are right now aware of the fact that there is a huge problem here, and because of the congestion, there is some demand management happening because people don't use that unless they absolutely have to. I wouldn't drive past here at between 3 and 4 unless I absolutely need to do something in the downtown campus, at 4:30, and if possible, I always use the PRT. Driving through here is the last option during those class change times for a lot of people. But even with that, it's a significant problem. And the gates, we looked into it, and it's not going to solve it because again, the backup is going to happen. We are looking at the shared space from an efficiency point of view. Can we improve the efficiency? And the students crossing are almost acting like a gate. There is a gate-like effect already happening.
Sorry, the last
sure.
Suggestion. So I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, and they had a similar thing with too much volume all at once. So they ended up staggering the class schedules so that instead of all the different schools having the same exact schedule, one would let out on the hour, one would let out at half an hour, and so forth. And it really alleviated the traffic.
That is something I cannot personally answer for. That is something the WVU administrators have to look at, because there are multiple schools, and I don't even want to get into that issue because once you start staggering, there could be issues like, and trust me, already it is a scheduling nightmare even without this shared space or congestion problem. Ensuring that there is enough courses so that the students can get out in 4 years is a big problem because we have 2 campuses. Adding this is, I'm not sure they're going to be happy, but it's not something I can do. It's something they can do. Yeah.
Sort of playing off the same question that I was just asked to hear about the different culture that would be in Europe versus the States. I couldn't help but think of that, and I studied abroad in the Netherlands years ago, and it was just so different than the way that our campuses worked. And also, in the late 90s, I took classes on environmental design that talked about different colors and plants and stuff, wayfinding. But at that time, I couldn't have told you what texting was. So I'm wondering if you know of any of the different patterns of what are they doing for this space, the shared space, the cues that you were indicating earlier, given now that a lot of people are glued to a phone while they're walking, checking up on emails between class versus looking around them the way that historically Europe would have been constructed.
Oh, that honestly, I really don't have the answer. How do you actually promote those kind of, in general, shared space means you need to be more alert, and I agree with the technology and things like that. The alertness is no longer there. I'm not sure if that aspect of the shared space has been looked into, and to be honest, I really don't have an answer for that because I don't think anybody has really studied how that affects. But in terms of culture point of view, in terms of how will people accept shared space, that was something at the back of our mind, and we did a study in the context of a roundabout, where when we constructed the first roundabout in West Virginia around 5-8 years ago, and there was a public opinion campaign, and we surveyed driver comfort. Initially when you read the comments in the newspaper and the local radio channel, everybody was like completely against it, but as the campaign went through and we continuously did feedback, we found that people sort of got used to using a roundabout. We even videotaped the roundabout, people using the roundabout for over 3-4 years, and looked at the data, how many irregular maneuvers were happening. People got comfortable with it. Shared space is one level higher. I know that. It's not a roundabout. It's something. But we are hoping, Pittsburgh is just an hour from Morgantown, and there's a lot of linkage between Morgantown and Pittsburgh. But the fact that Pittsburgh is so gung-ho into roundabouts, and we just found that out, into shared space, we just found that out this summer, and we are working with Pittsburgh actually, and trying to talk to them and find out what are they doing to address all of these challenges, because that is this at a much higher scale. Yeah. Essentially the landscaping, the way that normally towards the end of the shared space there will be like a slight increase in the pavement gradation, sort of indicating that this is like where pedestrians have refuge. It's not a problem if you drive your car over there, but all of these subtle things. Sometimes you have bollards, small plants, those kind of things.
Well, don't forget to say your name if you're enrolled in the class, please.
Travis Glick. At what point, speaking about traffic volumes or pedestrian volumes, do shared spaces stop becoming useful? If you build a shared space and your city is growing, traffic volumes increase, your school opens a new department, do you have to completely rebuild it again because now it's dangerous for pedestrians or the vehicles or some other factor?
Oh, definitely. I'm sure after a certain point, there will exist a point where shared space stop being useful. I don't think anybody has done that analysis, and that could be a pretty interesting research question. At what volume and at what speeds do they stop becoming, or they start becoming dangerous? In general, if people can drive through at 10-15 miles per hour, that's what we are looking at shared space, not more than 15 miles per hour. Okay, I do agree that at really higher volumes, yes, it definitely starts becoming dangerous. Yeah.
Michael Flint. My question is similar to Travis's. Is there an ideal percentage of pedestrian traffic versus vehicle traffic or total traffic that you might use if trying to determine if a place should be a shared space or not?
So far, as the literature, there is no study like that, but definitely that will be an interesting study to do. You know, what are the cutoff points at which, you know, safety versus efficiency, all those kind of things. And I'm sure it will depend from place to place, the width, a lot of the other factors will start affecting. Yeah.
Ben Baumgartner, Urban Planning. How do emergency vehicles interact with shared spaces? Have you guys found that in your research? And you alluded to it with construction and maybe freight as well. How are they share the space?
For this particular case, basically the construction and facilities department, they just want a spot, and I think they are just going to pick a spot where which is going to be a freight loading zone, which is convenient for them because they have the chemistry department there, physics department there, and constantly equipment being taken in, taken out, so they will pick an ideal spot. With respect to emergency vehicles, we are assuming it will hopefully work the same way as it is in any. Once you hear the siren, everybody makes way and it passes through. That's what we are thinking. Yeah.
David Warner. What was the reaction of the the policing, parking enforcement, those organizations to the shared space? Like, I could just think of people just parking their cars in the middle of class or in the middle of campus because it's a great parking spot. And it's open.
Definitely parking is not allowed. I mean, inside the shared space, but in the campus, the chief of security and their representative was pretty positive. Their response was, "This will work." They are more worried about the one thing they are worried about is the Friday night traffic. You know, it's right near downtown. Students, you know, Friday and Saturday nights. That was their main worry. What can we do to educate students? You know, when they are not in full control over their faculties. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Ian Clancy, Transportation. You mentioned that there's currently not a lot of bike travel in the area, but would you say that your current plan really facilitates bike travel? And if not, then what would you do to possibly change that?
I used to be an avid biker. Started biking when I was like in my second grade, and I did not know how to drive a car until 3 years ago, believe it or not. You know, and even I wouldn't bike in Morgantown. It's too hilly. Side distances, people are not used to seeing bikes. You know, especially even when it starts getting slightly icier, it can get really dangerous really fast. And I never biked in Morgantown. I really don't think this will increase the bike share or anything like that. There are too many other constraints. You know, already it's a small town, but it's actually a very compact small town, so there's already a lot of congestion. There is no space for installing bikes and the grades. You know, it makes it tough to for a higher percentage of bike share, and it's something I wish we could do something about it. But I highly doubt it. I highly doubted whether this will contribute to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any law enforced in it? For example, a speed cameras or something? Since it's not very common in the United States for the shared spaces.
That's a good question. So far, at least in the Massachusetts experiments, there has not been a speed camera. At least in Cambridge, it appears to work. But I think that was a location which sort of functioned as a shared space anyway, even though they did not call it a shared space. It was a university street where drivers drove slowly and people walked around and biked around, so there was no need for speed cameras. But here, definitely, it's something we, as you know, as we get closer to implementing, if it goes forward, that is a thought process. Maybe we can install something over here. Because there is another project we have, which is in West Virginia, we have a lot of high schools which are right next to state highways. So we are looking at high schools right next to roadways with 55 miles per hour. We are currently installing one of those speed monitoring displays in front of a bunch of high schools and middle schools and seeing how much it reduces speed. That is going on literally right now. Okay, and if that is a success, we may look at implementing some of those over here and here, just to, if traffic calming works using speed monitoring device, at least till the time the the drivers get used to the idea of a shared space. We're looking at maybe renting a speed trailer and putting it out so that at least it's one of those devices where like you drive, it's like it just show you your speed and say you are over the speed limit and stuff like that. That's definitely something at the back of our mind. But first, we are looking for the result of the school zone project. Yeah.
Do you guys take into account that it just might make people avoid it completely, and then just make it the problem on like an ulterior road?
That definitely is there. For the purpose of this project, as I said, we have not looked into the macro scale problem. There is a possibility that, as you said, people may avoid it, or rather push the problem onto Beechhurst. But there it will become a regular traffic problem, not a traffic plus pedestrian problem. And hopefully we can solve that using better signaling and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely that is a possibility. But as I said, the people who use it now also, they are the ones who want to get somewhere over here. They are the main users. So unless they go this way, catch US 19 and go extremely circuitous route, right? It really, hopefully it will push more people onto the PRT, even more people onto the PRT. Use transit more. That could be a nice outcome of this.
Yeah, so I'm actually asking for a colleague who couldn't be here today who's doing her dissertation on shared space.
Oh, cool.
She wondered, you mentioned the difficulty of looking at crash data when there are no crashes. She wanted to know if you have or if you're planning to collect data on sort of precursors to crashes like pedestrian auto conflict or avoidance maneuvers, things sort of crash. Is that something that you're looking at?
We ideally like to. It's a function of the amount of budget we have. Almost all the work which presented here was done pro bono from our end. Yeah. Right now we got funding. My students won a fellowship and WVUs investigating it. We're talking to the police what is the best way to do it, and still don't have an answer for that yet. I mean, they can help, but the minute you put a police car there, everything becomes orderly. So it's not the ideal way to collect data. That's the problem we have. Yeah.
Do you feel like it would be useful that conflict? I guess we call it conflicts between cars and pedestrians in a usual environment, but in shared space, from what you've said, that almost might be useful. Interactions are not necessarily conflicts.
Exactly. It's difficult to, like in an intersection, we can draw all these most likely movement and identify which are the conflict points. But in a shared space, theoretically, there are like a billion conflict points because you can start from one end, go wherever you want, right? So that is going to be, still not sure how we can do it. But ideally, if we can have somebody there during a peak hour and kind of visually see and collect data, or have a traffic camera there recording it and seeing, for a couple of hours during class change times and seeing, okay, are there any sort of dangerous, situations occurring? Yeah, that is something we'll definitely look into that.
Thanks.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Here in Portland, one thing that has been effective at engaging the community and having an increased sort of sense of place, and also reducing traffic speed at intersections that have no stop signs have been community art at the intersection. It's more of a statement rather than a question, I suppose. Have you considered some sort of community, probably university-based painting or art scheme that might help reduce traffic speeds as visual cues entering the shared space?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's we are open to all options, in terms of trying to reduce the traffic speed. Particularly worried because this is a downward slope here, so people actually speed up. You automatically speed up during this curve, and yeah, definitely we are looking at all sorts of options, and that's something. Even when we are talking with the architectural firm, one of the things we made very clear is go overboard with respect to traffic calming. at all entrances. You just go over design it there. That's not a problem. At least till the community gets used to the concept of a shared space. Definitely, yes, all options are open. Yeah.
That leads me into my next question is about the gap, if any, between implementation and adoption in shared spaces. I know here in Portland, people have already driven across the New Max only bridge and have driven through the Robertson Tunnel before. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to be outlier situations. But, and I know as a driver, you kind of get into a habitual commuting pattern, and you might not even notice the traffic change until you kind of come right upon it. So is there like a time, you may have alluded to this with the roundabout, is there a measurable time between when it first goes in and when you pretty much have 100% adoption?
We are hoping, 6 to 12 months. That was the time frame we had for at least for the roundabouts. Within the first 3 to 6 months, we saw a good spike, and then by 12 months, everybody was comfortable with it. And my student also wants to graduate in 2017, so so he's also hoping that this adoption happens within that time frame. But if it gets executed, summer of 2016, we are hoping the construction, and 1 year to get used to it. That's the plan. Yeah.
You've got these high peak human flows that are creating this wall. How do you keep that from occurring on shared space?
Right now, there is almost all the pedestrian traffic occurs at one point. It's this. The design is such that almost everybody congregates here and crosses. And that's how, if you look at the curb, if you look at the way the entire roadway section is designed, you naturally gravitate towards that point to cross the road. What we are planning to do is just removing all the curbs, everything, make everything from an elevated point of view. Because a lot of these students, there is this physics building here, there's a library here, they all walk here, cross. What we are hoping is, if all of this becomes a shared space, instead of walking all the way here and crossing, maybe they'll just cross here, and that disperses the wall. We are not creating a funneling effect. We are making everything equal. Hopefully, students will just start crossing it. They get out of the physics building here and the library here and just cross.
So there are too many buildings to cross.
Yeah. Right.
Renan, civil engineering. I am Brazilian, and I'd like to know, do you think this kind of solution would work in development countries, like Brazil or Russia? Do you think it's an education question or a cultural question?
There's a lot of culture regarding it. And I think in most of the developing countries, I cannot speak for Brazil, but at least in India, we are used to intersections with no control. We don't call it shared space. We are used to having traffic, finding their way around, making eye contact, and all those kind of things. If you go to a driving school in India, that's the first thing they teach you. You just make sure you look around, and do it. But it's a different. It's more of a cultural thing, I guess, in the United States. Yeah.
Okay, we are running out of time. Let's thank. Actually, before we thank for a great talk, next week we'll have Harley to talk about location efficiency housing. Okay, with that, let's thank Dr.
Thank you.